Why is it impossible for ANWR to have as much oil as Saudi Arabia? Because the places on Earth that have the largest oil deposits are the places that had the most organic plant and organic life in prehistoric times. Think back to Pangea, right? So go back a few 100 million years. What places on Earth back then, when the continents were where they were, would have had the most life? It is all the places that are closest to the equator. Could be a little bit north, could be a little bit south, but the places closest to the middle, where it had the most moderate temperatures and all of that stuff, those are the places that had the most plant life that's going to have the most oil reserves. So Saudi Arabia has a massive oil reserve. Venezuela has a massive oil reserve. West Texas, massive oil reserves. So this is what we think, right? This is what we think Pangea looked like. But I want to show you something. The places with the largest oil reserves in the world. Saudi Arabia, you just draw a straight line from here to here. Oh, there's Venezuela. And then just to the north a little bit, West Texas, what is now West Texas. Everything through this area had the most plant life. It had the most CO2 in the atmosphere, all through the center of the earth right here, or, just north and south of the equator. You needed that, and you needed the places that had the most tectonic activity. So you need places that have a lot of subduction, where, the plates go under other ones, and you need places that have large rifts. Now, that's not to say that all these other places didn't have plant life, but the places that had the most dense plant life and the largest, most massive plants, and that have a lot of subduction in the tectonic plates and large rifts, which are like huge oil traps to capture the oil in, almost like underground oil storage tanks. They're all along this line. They're all along this line, and Alaska's way up here. And Alaska had plant life, and Alaska has a big subduction zone, but nothing even close, nothing to compare to what's through here. That's why Venezuela has the most oil in the world. That's why Guyana, you're hearing a lot about Guyana right now. It's just south of Venezuela. All of that is along this line. And depending on how the subduction zones, depending on how that works and where the mountains pop up at, the oil is either going to be between the mountains or it's going to flow through a rift to the south. Another thing you have to remember, we're not talking about plant life that looks anything like plants did today. We're talking about prehistoric plant life. Plant life that existed at a time when there was zero pollution, when there wasn't urban sprawl. Like, it was just really dense, huge plant life. That's the plant life that became the oil and gas. A mushroom like this that we see today is like this big. Back then, this thing was like 25, 30 fucking foot tall. So the plant life we're talking about in prehistoric times that eventually became oil and gas is much bigger, much more dense. There's just a lot more of it than anything we have on the planet today that we see, that we're aware of. And it accumulated over time. It died. It died, it came back, it died again, it came back, it died again. This is hundreds of millions of years of geologic and plant life, organic life processes in play to get the oil we have right now. And it grew in an atmosphere that had very high levels of CO2, much higher than we have now. So the only way that ANWR could have as much oil as Saudi Arabia or Venezuela, Guyana, or even West Texas, it would have had to have spent hundreds of millions of years close to the equator and then somehow made its way up to where it is now. The places closest to the equator went through more cycles of organic life, springing to life and becoming abundant and then dying, than places to the north or places to the south. They did have those cycles, but they were shorter and fewer, because the places farther to the north and farther to the south had more periods where they were completely covered in ice for millions of years. And that's why you see the largest oil deposits in the world basically along a line around close to the center of the earth, back from even Pangea. Basically along that line, largest oil deposits on the planet by far. Thanks.